Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, welcome back, and today we are going to show you how to do a PCV reroute on a 2006 LBZ Duramax. Now, if you ever listen to a lot of truck forums, or if you ever go to a bunch of pulls or shows or anything, you'll often hear people talk about rerouting their PCV system and how it may be bad. If you are new to the diesel world, you may not exactly know what a PCV is, or just of the automotive world in general. PCV stands for pressurized crankcase ventilation. And what happens is, as you're running your engine, whether it be even at normal RPMs, but especially at high RPMs, a lot of compression and things like that slip past the rings, and it actually begins to build up pressure within the crankcase. So what a lot of systems do to keep you from blowing out all your seals is they actually vent it out the top, whether it be through the valve covers or any other sort of way, and then they reroute it back into your intake. And the reason they do this is for emission standards. So one of the negative things about a PCV system is that it throws a bunch of oil, if you happen to build up a bunch of pressure inside of it, back into your engine. And as you can see, that is not good for any engine whatsoever. Now, a lot of people say that their engine will be alright, or that you don't really need to do this system, and I actually have evidence here that I pulled off of my own vehicle to take a look at here. So what we're looking at is the intercooler boots. This one is the top intercooler boot off of the turbocharger, and then this one is the bottom intercooler boot that goes from the bottom of the hot side. So what we're looking at right here is, if you can see inside, is you can see puddles of oil and a very nice little secretion. Now this hose is actually not very dirty. I know I have not wiped this out. I pulled it straight off the truck and laid it here on the table for everyone to see. All of that oil that happens to get bypassed goes inside of your engine. Now these hoses here are relatively clean. I've seen hose clamps or hoses in general that are a lot dirtier, and I've also seen them a lot cleaner as well. But one thing we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a complete step-by-step process on how to install this system from Sinister Diesel, and that way we will get rid of this oil that is going into the engine because it is unneeded. The kit that we are doing from Sinister Diesel fits a 2004.5 to a 2010 Duramax. The only difference that this kit comes with is that for the LOYs, there is a different style of a plug. So this plug here goes into where your PCV would actually reroute into your mouthpiece of your turbocharger. The LBZs and the LMM, they need it with this little groove at the top. The LOYs, this here will be smooth. It actually won't have that little indentation from it. And other than that, that is the only thing that is different between the two kits. Both kits come standard with a 10 feet of 5/8 hose that says Sinister Diesel on it. See there? It also comes with your fittings for your hoses, place the factory ones, 2 hose clamps, and then the 2 bolts that are necessary to hold it on. The tools that are needed for this are actually very simple, and most people have them inside of your garage. If you look here inside the instructions, it tells you all you need is a T30 Torx bit, an 8mm socket, a 10mm socket, and then some diagonal cutters. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and get started by taking off some of the parts. Okay, so now what we're looking at is the actual engine bay. And as you can see, there are a few parts missing that I've already taken off just to speed up the video because they're very easy to take off at home. To take out the intake, there's just a box that sits here, and then there's clamps up here that just slide it off of the mouthpiece here that go down into the turbocharger. That's very easy to take off. Most people can do that without explanation. Unhooking the mass airflow sensor is very easy as well. The reason I have covers on everything, little rags with rubber bands around them, is because I actually took this stuff off yesterday, and I've been wanting to do this evening, so that's why I have everything covered up, is because I didn't want anything getting inside of there, whether it be dust or bugs or something of that nature. And a lot of people, including inside the instructions here, it doesn't tell you to take off the intercooler pipe on this side. It's not a very difficult thing to do. You pull the fender liner out, and then it's just hose clamps at the top, hose clamp at the bottom. You just pull it straight out the bottom. It's very easy to do. It says that is not necessary, but it is very difficult to reach the bolts and everything that exist back in here. So I will say that if you remove this pipe, it does give you a little bit more room for working, and that way it also makes installing this system a little easier. Alrighty, another quick thing that I forgot to mention earlier is anytime you work on your vehicle, it's a very good idea to disconnect your negative battery cables. That way the vehicle itself and the computer doesn't have power inside of the vehicle. So what we are looking at right now is the passenger side where the PCV comes out at. The one on the driver's side looks exactly the same, except it's underneath of a few objects over there, so it's a little bit more difficult to get out. But the only thing that you have to do is take off this 10mm bolt right here. You take that off, it's just a holder that keeps this tube in place, and then once that's off, that tube slides right off. Alrighty, so for over here on the driver's side, I wanted to show a very good example of how easy it will be if you take off the intercooler pipe. So right here is the PCV for the driver's side. If you look, I have the socket with a very short extension on top for the ratchet. And as you can see, they're sitting actually right where the intercooler pipe would be. So this would be very easy to take off because I have removed that. If you didn't remove the intercooler, you would have to fight around it, and you would most likely just struggle overall with it, and it'd take the build a very long time. So see how much easier it is just pulling the intercooler pipe. Okay, so where the actual factory tube ties into the intake here, it says to cut the band off of the bottom, but when I was actually looking, I was wondering why they were going to cut it off. All it is like a standard spring clamp, and I don't know why they want you to cut it off. I'm going to try to take these pair of pliers right here and squeeze it off, see it'll come out without me cutting it off. There may be a reason you have to cut it off, but I'm going to try to get it out without cutting it because I don't like cutting factory stuff or bands off unless you really need to. Alright, so it just came out, and there is actually the piece. I do not know why they had you cutting this band here off, because if you just take a pair of pliers and squeeze it from the back side and just pull up on it, the whole entire thing slides off. So I would recommend not cutting it, which means you don't need the set of the side snips. Just get you a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers preferably, and just squeeze it and then pull up on it, it'll slide right off. So this is how the PCV actually sits down inside the truck. This one loops over to this side with the wrap on it right here, and then this other side here goes down right into there. And the other side is right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install the pieces that came here inside the kit. Inside these little barbs right here. We're going to install them, and then we're going to put the hose on with the clamps and install this little plate right here. This little button right here is the one that goes right there inside, where it actually goes into the intake. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all that done, and then we're going to run the access lines, and we're going to run them down here to where they actually dispose of the oil down into an area that we prefer and not into our intake. Okay guys, so what we're looking at is when we actually install this nozzle piece right here into where the factory one goes. So what actually happens is you install this piece here with a little O-ring down, and then you put the supplied hardware in the top just to hold it in place. And that is actually what it will look like right there. And so this is the one on the passenger side, and now we're going to do the one on the driver's side. Okay, so now we have the driver's side one done. As you see right down there. It all went together very nicely. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide the hose on with the hose clamps, and then we're going to just route them to the area where we want to dispose of the oil. Okay, so once you slide the hose over the barb piece, you just apply the hose clamp, and then there it is. Sinister Diesel sends you a 10-foot long section of 5/8 hose. You just cut it in half so each section is 5 feet long. You apply it to each side, then you just route it down into wherever you would like for it to dispose of. Once we have the fender liner stuff back in, we'll secure it down there. We won't show a video of that because it just wherever you may want to route it, or you may want to, once you hang it down and get it away from all the moving parts, you might want to just leave it hang wherever you want it to be. As you can see, with the intercooler pipe on, it's a lot more difficult to get down there to work on the PCV. That's why I pulled it off, because I wanted to paint them anyway. And then we also allowed more space to work on that, so we didn't really have to struggle, and things went a lot faster. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I will post a link down into the description for this kit that I bought to put on the truck. If you have any personal builds, or if you want to ask me questions about my builds, you can shoot me an email at southernsilverado mail@gmail.com. Have a great rest of y'all's day, and thank you guys very much for the view.